G'day, how you going? So today we're going to talk about changing the brightness of highlights and shadows, which is that twirly thing that you see. I'll show you how to get to that. Then controlling the color, there's a thing called Color Creator, and I've always wondered what the hell that was, and you actually got to get through it through two menus. And these things, they're actually in a thing called multi-function, and also in there you've got the white balance, ISO, and the aspect ratio. So I won't go too much into the white balance or the ISO because that's probably going to need a whole video by themselves. So I'll just show you features you can do in this multi-function thing. We're going to get into that F function 2 button. So you go into that using the back dial. You hold it down, the function 2 button, and then you move over to the, well, it's already on the first one anyway, that's why they say it's the default one. So when you click it with the front dial, you can change the highlights to make it brighter. You can go the other way to make it darker, or you can, decrease the shadows or bring out the highlights and the shadows. If you want to set it back to normal, you hold down the OK, and that brings it back to normal. Okay, so if you look at this one here, I'll take a photo there, and the highlights and shadows, you can see in the trees that it's a bit dark. So if you want to reduce the shadows in that silhouetted tree there, you can bring it up a bit, and then you can see how it lightens it up. So it's just bringing the shadows out of the, or you can go the opposite. So that's why you use these highlights and shadows. You can to just fine tune. It's more for fine tuning. Now the thing is, you can do all this in Workspace anyway. So I never really use this. I mean, if you want to change it later, you can just change it later. So, but I guess if you just want to get it straight out of camera, then you can fine tweak it with the highlights and shadows. Okay, so the other one is Color Creator. Now that you've probably seen that before when you go into the profile, into the picture profiles there. There's a thing called Color Creator, and you click on that and you think, well, how do you change that? There's no change. You can't change it anywhere. And where that actually is in that F2 button. So if you go into F2 and move the back dial, there's the Color Creator. So now that's set to that. So when I click on that now, it comes up with the color wheel, and then in here you can change it drastically to whatever you want, So obviously you're just playing around with all the colors, and you can even fine tune. You can get to vivid 1, vivid 0. You can go -1, -2, all the way to black and white, I guess. So it's just changing the color. If I move into that, now that's going to be set forever on that color selection. So if I go back into here and then move it into whatever, back to normal. So there you go there. If you've set up that red, and you go, oh look, that would be awesome, I would use that somewhere else. You don't have to keep changing. You can just go back to that, and then there it remembered where it left it. If you want to change it again, click the F2 button and then go back in. So what you could do, you can bring out the colors in camera rather than doing it in post. Now if you want to maybe say make the skies a bit bluer, so yeah, start playing around with it. What if we go to the blue? Jesus, that looks shit. That looks crap. I don't know. Anyway, this is something to play around with. It's better done in post. So then there's also ISO and white balance. You can do both at the same time. So it's just another way of getting to it really fast. So the front dial changes the ISO up the top there, and the back dial changes the white balance. And the next one is magnify. So we've been over this one before. When that's awesome when you want to use it with autofocus. Use the function 2 button there, and then you can, when you want to focus manually, or even when you want to focus automatically, it just zooms in and you get a better idea that you're properly in focus. And then the next one is the image aspect. So what the image aspect is, it just brings up that quick menu. Say for instance, you want to quickly, I need this photo for YouTube, because YouTube is always a 16:9 frame. Rather than flip around trying to find it, it's just a fast way, bang, 16:9. Another thing that plays on with the metering of the light is the highlights and shadows in where it does that peaking. There's in the info settings, that's for playback. You can turn it on in playback as well. There's a thing called highlights and shadows. What this is it'll show you orange where it's blown out, and it'll show you blue where it's too dark. And then this one here is a live view. If you want to go, so you can pick that one and have it on there. If you see now, it's showing up the top there, the light, the window, that's just blown out. And same with the shadows. You see there, you see the blue, that's just saying it's too dark. If you want to go and look at shots that you've already taken, for instance, let's look at this one. Now you don't actually see it, so you've got to hit the info. So you click info once, it'll show you the histogram and all your settings, and then you can see those blinkies there, the blue, that's saying that little part of it's too dark, can't be recovered. If you want to change the threshold, you can go to display and you can change the histogram settings, this one, and it's saying 255 is complete white and 0 is complete darkness. So if I say clip it, what's the range here? You can go to 245, clip it at 245, start blinking at me at 245, and start blinking at me at 10. You can change the numbers here, so you can tweak that. So alright, I've done that. Alright, so show what that means. If you go back out now, and if you have a look now, it's showing you way more that's been clipped. And now it's clipping much earlier than what it was when it was 255 and 0. You know, you get what I mean. So the reason why people use that and shorten the histogram, it kind of gives you like a pre-warning. Your peaking thing is going to tell you ahead of time that it's blown out, when you still got like those 10 numbers. So if you put it on 10, you've still got that area to play with later on. It's just like an earlier warning that things are clipped when they're not really clipped. You've still got those 10, 0 to 10, and was it 245 to 255. You still got those numbers to play with. You're just getting a warning 10 numbers earlier. Okay, so that's it. So that's just a short one on that multi-function button, and also a few of the other things that help you when you're metering. So changing the lights and the shadows using those little features. A lot of it's done in post anyway, but in camera, if you can get the best shot. And the best one is the bit where you can, it'll tell you where it's blown out and blown. I keep calling it the peaking, but it's the light, the highlights and the shadows. The peaking's for focusing. That's why I got confused. So, but that one where it goes orange or blue, dark blue, it tells you it's too dark. And if you can squeeze the histogram. So I'll see you next one.